So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Star vs the Force of Evil, so let's start the series. The intercoms blared loudly in Echo Creek Elementary's hallways. It stated, Naruto Uzumaki to the principal's office. When the announcement was made, students were wandering the hall, but one appeared to respond because they were now near the door of the office in question. He was a young man with a neatly styled mane of sunny blonde hair, a pair of cerulean blue eyes, 3 thin lines that appeared to be whisker marks on either side of his cheek, and an athletically lean build. He was wearing a sleeveless orange and black jacket, a pair of orange pants, a short-sleeved blue undershirt, a pair of white sneakers with blue laces, a necklace with a green gem attached, and finally, a pair of blue wristbands. Naruto Nathaniel Uzumaki was this person. And after allowing himself entry to the office, he welcomed the man beside the receptionist's vacant desk. Naruto said, Principal Skeeves, with courtesy. You wanted to see me? The principal, Mr. Skeeves, responded, Ah, Naruto my boy, there you are, and to the bewilderment of the blonde, the lanky man tenderly stroked a crate of gold and silver jewels. Yes, I wanted to see you, and no, you're not in trouble either, you're here for something else entirely, in fact, my young friend, this way, please, he said. Naruto trailed behind the shorter man. You see Naruto, a foreign exchange student just joined our prestigious ranks, Principal Skeeves said. And you're here because I picked you to help her with the transition into our society. From now on, you're her guide. Why me, sir? Naruto asked, turning to face the shorter, stout principal. Not that I'm complaining, but... Additionally, Naruto was pleased to see a woman playing with the switch of a little table lamp as soon as the two entered the threshold leading to the main office. This woman, who appeared to be about his age, had a pair of bright, sky-blue eyes, a smooth mane of sunny blonde hair that reached her knees, with bangs that hung over her eyes, eyebrows, fair skin, and a slim, yet attractive, body with a slim torso, a pair of wide, perky hips, and a pair of equally attractive long legs. She wore a short-sleeved, sea-green dress with a white collar, white lace on the sleeves and skirt, and a pink octopus on the front. She also wore pink and orange leggings, dark magenta boots with a rhino design, and a small yellow star-shaped side bag with a face that she slung over her shoulder. She seemed astonished as the light switch flicked on and off, and from the perspective of the two people that entered the room, she said, Whoa. And you say you guys don't have magic? In response to the query posed by the blonde with the whiskers, Skeeves said, Because, my boy, next to Mr. Diaz, you're the one student I can rely on to watch out for our new foreign exchange student, Star Butterfly. At that, Naruto blinked. To the younger man's surprise, the short, portly man went on, Also, I've spoken to your parents and they agreed to be the hosts of the student exchange program this time which means the two of you are going to be roommates, so who better to show her around? Now then, if you don't mind. He pushed open his door and walked to the blonde, saying, I'm off to the ice cream store, Daddy's gonna get all 32 flavors. The two blondes were then left standing by themselves in the principal's office. Hey handsome. Star slipped up to her new target without a second's hesitation. I'm Star, it looks like we're going to see each other a lot. Are you as excited as I am? She said. In response, Naruto's mouth only opened and closed. After what seemed like an hour, but was actually only 3 minutes, he cleared his throat and ended the quiet that had surrounded the two. Heh, sorry about that, he said with a dazzling smile, your otherworldly beauty just caught me off guard. Oh. Star blushed profusely before turning away and affectionately playing with a fistful of hair. She was obviously surprised by the unexpected compliment, saying, "Well, of course I'm hot." You'd be blind not to notice, but she soon discovered that her center was smiling broadly. "And you're not so bad looking yourself, big guy," she said. As he runs his fingers through his hair, Naruto boasts, "At least someone smart enough to finally notice." "Really, you have no idea how hard it is to hammer that fact into the uncultured swines I'm usually stuck with, sigh," he says. Star laughed at her fellow blonde's rudeness, thinking it was adorable. Naruto grinned again and shook his head. He turned around and extended his elbow to the exchange student, saying, "But let's not get into that right now, not when there are places to see and things to do. Ready to start that tour, future roomie?" "Lead the way, new friend," said Star with a smile, then she wrapped her arm around the offered elbow. The two then departed the office. Note: Star versus the forces of evil and Naruto are not mine. Chapter 1: Enchanting Disclosure. However, the subsequent tour was brief. "So that's about it," Naruto said. "As long as you try to ignore how boring some classes can be from time to time, 'cause of the way teachers tend to drone on and on, school's a really cool place to hang out, at least, that's if you have friends to do the hanging out with, and I doubt that's gonna be a problem for you. The making friends part, unless I'm wrong." "Nope," said Star Butterfly. "Making friends comes naturally to me, especially 'cause it's part of my job description, with me being a magical princess and all." Naruto gave the eager-looking Star an informative tour of the school as requested by the principal, and shortly after the principal left, he apologized for his behavior. During the tour, the spiky-haired blonde introduced his new roommate to the school's various facilities and some of the other students they might have encountered. Star got along with the majority of them, and they decided to hang out together to get to know one another. Since Naruto believed it would be a pleasant spot for them to spend time with alone, the two were currently hanging out on the school's roof. However, Naruto was a little taken aback by his fellow blonde's final utterance, "A princess? From where?" "It's in another dimension, so you probably won't know about it, unless you might have access to a pair of dimensional portal scissors," Star explained after noticing the confused expression. "A place called Muni," she said. "And those are?" asked Naruto, tilting his head. Star responded, "I mean, it's in the name, scissors that let you cut open a portal that lets you go anywhere you want." Naruto scratched his chin and thought, "Huh, neat, and that magical part of your title?" As she waved the wand in her hand, a trail of golden sparks emerged. "I only just got it, so I'm not really good with magic like my mom is. She doesn't even need a wand to do magic." "Jealous." Star smiled, "Oh. I can do magic with my wand." "See?" she said. "Wait, that's a wand?" Naruto looked up. "I thought that was just a toy or something." "Nope. It's a wand, see?" Naruto watched as Star pointed the wand's face at a stray butterfly, saw a beam of energy shoot out of it and strike the creature a few seconds later, and jumped back in surprise when he saw the butterfly change into a huge, hideous version of itself, roaring in rage before flapping away from the two. Star blushed at the outcome, saying, "Yeah, like I said. I'm not really that great at magic." "Well, everybody has to start somewhere," said Naruto. "I'm sure your mom probably had as much trouble as you when she started with her magic and worked really hard to not need a wand to use it." "Yeah, right," Star said. "Everything's so perfect for her, so prim and proper. I bet when she got the wand, she got her spell in the first try." "Star, I'm willing to bet that wasn't the case," said Naruto. unless she's some kind of once-in-a-lifetime genius that gets her spells right on the first try. Heck, even I've got a few nifty tricks up my sleeve that I didn't get the hang of until I practiced and practiced. It pays off." As she pondered his comments, Star gazed at her fellow blonde. "You can do magic. Show me." "Show me," she said. Naruto said, "I'm pretty sure I didn't say magic," but then he appeared uncertain. "I'm not as awesome as my mom or dad are when it comes to stuff like this," he said. "Don't care," yet instead of giving up, Star persisted, as seen by her demanding right foot stomping. Show me now." Okay, geez, calm down," Naruto sighed. He inhaled deeply and collected his thoughts. A smile spread across his face as he clapped his palms. "So, Miss Butterfly, you want magic? Behold, my first trick dash, a simple-looking handkerchief, nothing odd about it, right?" he said, reaching into his sleeves. Star nods quickly. "Well, think again." Naruto squeezed the handkerchief with both hands, and when he released the pressure, Star was met by a yellow-feathered girl wearing a top hat and a monocle instead of the white sheet of cotton it had begun as. "Behold the amazing Toriyama. My assistant in today's show." "Say hi Yama," Naruto said. "Chirp," the bird barked as it waved to Star. Star squealed, her eyes glimmering with delight as she exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, so cute, who's a cute little bird?" "You are." "Yes you are." "Chirp." Toriyama exclaimed, puffing out its chest in pride in response to the compliments. "Chirp. Chirp." Star stopped and turned to face Naruto, saying, "Of course I want to see your dinosaur." "But wait, what is a dinosaur? How can I understand him?" "Don't worry about it," Naruto said, smiling, placing his hands on his hips as Toriyama flapped away from the blonde's palm and settled on his shoulder. "Wanna see some more tricks?" he asked. Star gave a quick nod. Naruto said, "Good answer," and extended his hand to the bird perched on his shoulder. "Toriyama." "Your hat please," he said, and the blonde with the spikes added, "Now then my lovely princess, watch closely." Star blushed at the compliment, but it was swiftly gone when, to her amazement, the hat her fellow blonde was holding grew 4 times larger in a blaze of dazzling light. Naruto demonstrated it for his enthralled audience. Naruto hummed as he reached into the hat and produced a black, 15-inch stick with a 1-inch white tip on the north end. "And Viola," he smiled, "but wait, that's not all. Behold, my wand." "Pretty neat, huh?" he said. "That doesn't look like any of the other wands I've seen in my grandma room," Star said with a charming little tilt of her head in bewilderment. "Don't let its appearance fool you, my lady, for despite its simple look, this wand is pretty awesome." Naruto recorded the grandma room comment for, "My dad made it for me when I was having a tough time with control and it's helped out a lot. Wanna see what I can do with this?" Star gave a quick nod. Naruto grinned. "Good answer." Naruto pointed to a pebble on the ground and blasted a strand of golden light at its white tip. When it struck its target and enveloped it in a translucent, golden aura, he hovered it to float between him and Star. "A normal-looking pebble, or is it?" he asked. There was a sudden burst of light. And the performance ended. "Oh my gosh, you're so awesome," she exclaimed. "I don't even know if I can do half the things you can with my wand." "You probably could if you practiced," said Naruto. "After all, if that worked for me, and it most certainly worked for your mom, it can work for you. I can help you out while you're here." And eventually, his face began to grin, when you're used to it, I can help you learn without a wand. Really? Star said. When her new buddy nodded, she exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing," and hurled herself forward, tackling her friend to the ground and putting her hands around his neck in gratitude. "Hugs," she said, placing her buns on his crotch. After blushing at the move, Naruto hesitated for a time before returning it. Unfortunately for the couple, who relished the intimacy, the bell rang, and they withdrew from one another to go back to the principal's office, where Star met up with her family's attendant. After the princess's introduction, Naruto and the attendant, Manfred, looked at each other intently. Then, the elegantly dressed attendant gave the information that Star's parents had asked him to give. Following the bell that signaled the conclusion of the day's lectures, Naruto and his new roommate, whom the roommate in question claims to be his best friend, walked side by side after their meeting with Manfred. The blond man looked at his side and said, "So, not that I'm complaining, but why walk home with me when you could have just used a portal? Seemed convenient." "Maybe, but I want to see more of your world," responded the princess, "and I can't do that with dimensional scissors. That stuff works only when you know where you want to go, and seeing as I don't know anywhere on Earth." "Ah," Naruto said with a nod of comprehension, "gotcha, I'd like to spend more time with someone, especially an attractive person like me." Star gave her new companion a friendly shoulder punch. "Although, walking can get boring real quick, sometimes," Naruto said. "And since you don't want to use portals, which I think is a missed opportunity, there's a third option we can try. Wanna try that? Is it those cool-looking horseless carriages?" Star questioned with excitement, jumping up and down, which caused her perky boobs to attract her friend's attention. "If so, then yes," she exclaimed. "Nope," Naruto shook his head, tearing his eyes from the bouncing orbs. "But I can assure you that you'll enjoy it," he said. And following a single idea, Star gave a nod. "Neat," Naruto smiled before, much to the princess's astonishment, he lifted her up in a bridal position and held her against his chest. "Hope you're not afraid of heights," he yelled. And with Star yelling all the while, the two blondes shot into the air like a rocket. Sadly, Star's enjoyment ended as she and Naruto arrived at the yard of a typical-looking home. "Ah!" Star sighed, "Can't we do that some more? I was really having fun." "We can, but after we get you settled," Naruto responded, "plus even if they have met your parents, my folks haven't met you yet and I don't want you guys to get acquainted at night," he continued, "it's better to do it now." Although Star was still clearly irritated about this, she agreed with her fellow blonde and put a stop to her fun after being assured that she would continue it once she was settled down and reminded that her parents were waiting for her. "Fini," she said, looking up at her host. "But we are continuing this later, no ifs, ands, or buts." Putting his hand on the doorknob, Naruto said, "Obviously. Come on, let's go meet my folks and get you acquainted with your room." Naruto brought his new acquaintance inside the house, where he thought she would find her parents talking to his, but when he only saw his parents, a shocked expression spread across its face. "Mom!" he yelled, "Dad! What happened to the butterflies? I thought they were around." "Oh, they were just here, sweetie," his mother said. She is a red-haired woman with violet eyes, a lovely face, and a feminine, appealing figure dressed in a green blouse over a teal short-sleeve shirt and sandals. "They seem nice," his mother said. "Oh, don't let their false exterior fool you," Star said, dreaming that their son would be more affected by the two adults' attractive appearance. "Under all that soft skin, they're ghouls ready to suck your soul." Star paused, adding, "Well, Mom is, Dad's okay, though. Mom, Dad, I'd like you to meet our new resident, Star Butterfly. Naruto said, and Star. I'd like to introduce you to my parents, my mom, Kushina Uzumaki he gestured to the redhead, and my dad, Minato Uzumaki, he gestured to the blonde male who looked so much like him that Star questioned whether they were clones. They're cool, at least once you get to know them, of course, he said. When Minato Uzumaki said, we're cool even when you don't know us, both adolescents winced. And if I were you, Star, I wouldn't trust the candy-laced words of him, he's a very notorious prankster, Minato said. Screw you Dad, said Naruto. And don't try to act cool when you're not, it's very cringe and I'd kill myself in public if that ever happened next to me. The two were frozen in place and shivered when Kushina's sickeningly beautiful voice said, now boys, no rough housing. Especially in front of our guests, we don't want to give off a bad impression, do we? Quickly, the blonde men said, no ma'am. Good, Kushina said. Now then, Star, welcome to our lovely home, Naruto will give you a tour of the place, and show you where you're going to be sleeping while you stay with us for as long as your parents deem necessary, Minato. I need you somewhere else. Why yes dear. Minato said as he hurried after his wife and said goodbye to Star, leaving the two children to stand by themselves in the living room. After a minute of silence, the princess said, wow. I hate to say this but I think your mom is way scarier than mine. Naruto offered Star her third tour of the day after nodding in agreement. Naturally, it concluded in Star's new room. Star says, yeah, I can work with this, as she exits the room and points her wand at the doorway, saying, sparkle glitter bomb expand. When Naruto opened his eyes and saw the results of Star's spell, he blew out an impressed whistle. Naruto had averted his eyes from the blinding flash that filled the room. He observed the princess and said, wow, looking around as he entered. Not bad, Star, wait is this what you were going for? Star nodded and said, aha. Pretty neat, huh? Looks like you're not as rusty as you thought Naruto smiled and said, I'll say. Star puffed up her chest with pride. But that doesn't mean you're skipping out on training, she said. I'm bored, oh, I know. Let me give your room a makeover. Star said, giving her pal the thumbs down, indicating that she wasn't very interested in it at the moment. Dissuading his new acquaintance from the aforementioned action, Naruto responded, I'd have done that myself if I wanted a makeover, trust me, I'm fine with how it is. Wanna finish our tour of the city instead? It's still bright outside and there are still some fun places I haven't shown you yet, he said. Star grinned as she appeared next to Naruto, wrapped her hands over his, and subtly felt his powerful, muscular bicep. Well then hot stuff, lead the way, she said. It's a date. After doing that, they departed from the Uzumaki home. In the meantime, a hidden figure sitting on a branch was observing the teenage couple through binoculars. As the hidden figure watched them leave the house, they produced a pair of scissors that appeared to cut the air like paper to any onlookers. When what appeared to be a swirling green mass after the efforts, the hidden figure leaped into the mass and emerged into what appeared to be an opulent-looking throne room. As the spy stood at attention in front of the throne, looking away from him, the swirling mass disappeared. Indeed, the form was male. Ludo, master, the spy said, pumping his fists into his wide chest, puffing it out, and saluting. I have tracked Star Butterfly to a dimension called Earth, she is alone and unguarded, he said. The throne turned around and the person sitting on it, Ludo, or a menacing grin. Fools, you think your daughter will be safe from me in another dimension, King and Queen Butterfly? All that stupid decision has done is give me a golden opportunity to snatch that wand away from all those annoying royal defenses. Good work, Buff Frog. It's nice to have competent people around every now and then. While his assembled colleagues gave him a variety of jealous glances, Buff Frog grinned at the compliment. A few hours later, at the break of day, Naruto made a gentle landing in front of the Uzumaki household, accompanied by a clearly excited Star. She hopped on the blonde's back and exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, that was so fun. I should have come here years ago. I had no idea Earth had so many amazing things." Naruto let his fellow blonde slide off his back and said, "Well, I'm glad I could make your first day on Earth a memorable one," adding, "It shows that my work as a tour guide was a complete success. I kind of wish this day didn't have to end. I want to keep having more fun," Star said with a smile that quickly turned into a slight pout. The blonde couple squinted at the sound of the new, squeaky voice and said, "Unfortunately for you Princess Dash, I'm gonna have to cut your fun short because you and I have an appointment." When they turned around, Star gasped when she saw the familiar eyes staring back at her. "Ludo. How did you know I was here?" she said, drawing her wand and pointing it at the group in front of her. "Wouldn't you like to know?" Ludo said with a sly smile. Star nodded and said, "Yes, that's why I asked." "Well, I don't have to tell you anything," Ludo said, turning to face the throng behind him. "Get her," he yelled, pointing to the blonde. The whole scourge roars in battle cries and rushes forward at their master's command. A red-skinned bull beast rushes to grab Star's throat, and she responds by assuming fighting stance. But before she could speak, Naruto, who had just been jolted out of his stunned daze, rushed forward, took a protective stance in front of her, and gave the bull creature a roundhouse kick to the face, followed by a vertical heel kick to the forehead, sending it crashing into the cement. He hears Star clapping in amazement as he regains his form. She yells, "You can fight? What can't you do?" With a sly grin, he meets her dazzling gaze, blows off his knuckles, and lets himself boast. "And this, by the way, is called karate," he said, chopping off the chest of an approaching monster and sending them flying out of the arena. Then they go all ham. They run into the battle together, and while Naruto manages to turn someone upside down with a quick kick to the upper jaw, Star's wand blasts one off their feet. In the corner of the battle, Ludo leaps up and grabs at Buff Frog's collar, shaking him with all the rage his small body can contain. His minion can only shake his shoulders in bewilderment as he yells, "You said she was unguarded. How didn't you see this coming?" he asks. Naruto leaps forward to cut into another twin-headed red monster after a potato-faced monster knocks back into his giraffe-shaped brethren. However, their heads separate, rendering the action useless until he takes advantage of the situation to slam his fist into each of their heads, and in his peripheral vision, he sees Star leap into the air and emit a brilliant, colorful beam of light. He grinned and said, "Heh, so much for not having control of her magic," as she yells, "Rainbow Fist Punch." Her opponent is sent flying into a nearby car window with a huge pummeling fist. Then, as the two blondes circled one another, Star threw a beam that bounced off the walls and struck someone who was about to attack Naruto. In retaliation, he karately chopped a hard hit into the belly of another monster that was about to surprise the female blonde before rushing in to stand back to back with his new friend for a brief moment before swiftly eliminating the entire mini-army of monsters, until the majority of them were lying in the carnage, struggling and in pain. Buff Frog is not as fortunate and takes a severe blow, but Ludo leaps out of the line of an approaching bolt. The little commander kicks his minion while he's down and shouts, "Get up, get up. You're embarrassing me." Already tired and disoriented, Buff Frog snatches a pole and attempts to pursue Star, but she aims her wand at his chest and chants, Jelly Bean Hallucination Mist, in rapid succession, causing his eyes to widen, turning into prisms of glitter and his cheeks to flush as though he is drunk. He looks at his hands and remains motionless, completely incapacitated. A pair of the monsters abruptly push Naruto and Star together and throw them to the ground, but they immediately get back up, and as the blonde with the spiky hair kicks the leg again, the princess lifts her wand and sends a tornado of pink magic at it. She yells, "Mega Narwhal Blast!" In reaction, actual narwhals emerge from the small wand, completely crushing the remaining monsters under them for the duration. The smug blonde approaches Ludo, who is now completely defeated and watching in fear. She smiles and puts her hand on her hip while idly waving her wand. She offers nicely, "You want some of this, Ludo?" He murmurs, "No," after looking up at her. He then follows all of his injured and unconscious minions, waving his hands violently at them. Ludo leaps into the air to open a dimensional portal with his sharp scissors and begins yelling at his followers, one by one, "Your muscles are like pudding, come on, back in the portal, you even retreat like losers. You see, you morons. This is what happens when you don't work out," he says. He joins them once all of the moaning, hurt beasts have returned inside, putting his head out one more time to shake his fist at Naruto and Star. The portal starts to close on his head as he says, "I'll get you next time, Star Butterf dash," and his voice is interrupted as he abruptly vanishes, dropping his skull hat to the ground. The princess picked it up and studied it, saying, "Souvenir. Oh my gosh, that was such a rush." Naruto whooped, grabbing Star's attention. "You were like I was like and they were like dash," he said, brushing his spiky blonde hair back and exhaling deeply. Star watched this with a chuckle and asked, "Is this what it's like for you every day?" Star said, "Ever since I got my wand, yeah," but then her face changed to one of remorse as she saw the mess Ludo had made. "Sorry about the mess," she said. However, Naruto disregarded Star's worry. "Don't worry about it," he said. "It's something I can take care of before my parents get back, especially if I start now," with a grin. "Wanna help?" Star chirped, "Sure," before settling down to work beside her new companion. "By the way, why didn't you use your magic against the monsters? And how can you even do it in the first place?" she asked. "Well, I wanted to see how you'd handle yourself," said Naruto. "Plus I don't need magic to help me with every single thing in my life, and as for the how, well. Consequently, we conclude this chapter. More than a week has gone by since she arrived on Earth, and while some people would still be getting used to their new surroundings after moving, Star Butterfly found this to be especially true because she was from a dimension that is far less developed than her new one, and she has spent the majority of her life as a princess, so she must now live a life that someone with her level of status is completely unfamiliar with. It was really difficult for her to adjust, even if she didn't show it. However, Naruto took note of this and, being the helpful friend that he was, assisted her in resolving any problems she was having before they went on any more dates. The 16-year-old Muni princess sat in the dining room with excitement, her eyes full of hunger, and her mouth watering from the scent that invaded her nostrils as Naruto Diaz opened the oven and took out a deep dish pan full of his and his housemate's dinner. This was because Star appreciated this and decided to give him the title of her best male friend. To celebrate, The newly dubbed best friend in question decided to make something special for his roommate. As he brought it to the table with a broad smile, the cook's hands, which were covered in oven mitts, carefully held the pan, which contained an organized collection of ground beef, triangle tortilla chips, melted blended cheese, onions, jalapenos, onions, tomatoes, and olives. For a brief moment, cheese strands were attached to the cube-shaped piece that was fished out, which contained all of the components crammed between layers of tortilla chips and gooey cheese. Naruto's comfy nacho casserole. Star, on the other hand, was still in awe as her caregiver put a spatula into the pan. Her salivation grew. "Oh! Triangle on a cube food," she exclaimed. "A little something I picked up from my cousin Marco but with a few added extra ingredients that I'm sure you'll like," Naruto said, setting one still steaming piece on a plate in front of Star. His guest then stabbed her fork onto the casserole, took a piece, and let her eyes dwell on it for a few moments before putting it in her mouth. However, she froze completely still, her pupils drastically shrinking and her eyes bugged out, as her taste buds detected the expertly blended flavors. "Careful, though, it's still hot as hell," Naruto said. But because time seemed to freeze for what felt like an age, she didn't even notice what was being said. When Naruto saw this, his expression changed to one of concern. "Star, you okay?" His worry intensified. "Crap, are you allergic to something in the food? Is it the spice? The corn?" Naruto blinked quickly a few times before he exhaled in relief as Star abruptly changed from being frozen and bug-eyed to holding up an empty plate towards the worried blonde and said, "More please." "That's the last thing I need right now," he joked. "Don't scare me like that, Star. You made me think I poisoned you or something, and I'd be in serious trouble with your parents if that were the case." He then reached for the spatula that was on the pan and followed her instructions. The only answer he got was Star's eating. After finishing the meal, he sat down again and reached for a bottle of hot sauce nearby, ready to offer it to Star, but before he could do so, the blonde woman in question raised an empty plate in front of him once more, her glittering eyes demanding loudly but silently for more. Then he put the spatula on the blonde's side of the pan and said, "Thoughts for later." When the princess finished her second plate and reached for the third, Naruto said, "Geez, Star, at that rate you might as well eat the rest of the casserole," before adding another portion as asked and watching as Star started working on her second serving right away. "Didn't think someone would be that big of a fan of my cooking. Maybe I should try that restaurant idea Mom and Dad suggested after high school," he said. Can I? Star pleaded, her blue eyes glimmering with determination. Naruto was going to respond and mention that she was talking with her mouth full when he was interrupted by a loud knocking. "Are they already back? I assumed Mom and Dad would be late," he said, blinking in bewilderment. Nevertheless, he realized that his parents wouldn't need to knock because they already had the key to the house, so he shrugged and continued eating. However, after giving Star the heads up, he realized that it might not be his parents after all, so he slipped a piece of food into his mouth and hurried to answer the door, but after looking left and then right and finding no one to greet him, he pulled back and scowled. He gritted his teeth in frustration and said, "Maybe it's a prank," adding, "and I'm a fool for falling for something so easy in the first place, good job me." But just as he was ready to shut the doors, a hovering, menacing blue horse head with a unicorn horn, a well-kept magenta mane, and stars for pupils was glimmering in front of his face. It said, "Yo, what up, home fry?" And you would be disappointed if you thought the blonde with the whiskers would scream his pants off in fear at the sight of a flying horse head that appeared to be alive because, A, he wasn't easily frightened and, b. he's dealt with much stranger things in his 17 years of life. So he kept a straight face while speaking to the strange-looking thing in front of him. Naruto said, "Sup, do you need something?" Naturally, the creature was surprised by his nonchalant reply. When Naruto said, "I am a flying, talking, horse head with a horn," it got in his face. "Just to make sure, you can see that, right?" Naruto said. The blonde said, "Yes, I can," and he nodded. "Can I help you?" He scowled and said, "Are you a girl or do you sound like that?" "I can't tell, 'cause of your lack of, well." He glanced down at the head and then back up at the bodiless body. "I'm sure you can figure it out," he said. The creature narrowed its eyes and said, "Oh, you think you're, haha, funny, wise guy," before exhaling a glittery smoke. Naruto smiled and said, "Maybe, you want to hear some jokes?" "I can tell jokes." "Your face is a joke," the angry head said, "and you know what? Since you pissed me off, your new name's gonna be Turd, and since you're from Earth, it's now Earth Turd, and as long as I'm here." With a dismissive flip of his hair over his ear, Naruto asked, "Is that the best you got, horse face? Because if so, you need new material. I've been called worse by people with hands, legs, and heads that aren't horses," he said. "Oh, I know, I didn't just hear you say that," the floating head screamed. "The fuck do you just say to me, Earth Third? What are you gonna do about it?" smiled Naruto cockily. "You're just a head with a horn that poops out vomit-inducing sparkles from her neck. I'm pretty sure I can take you on in your sleep." "Why, you little dash," the head inhaled deeply and composed herself, saying, "Look, I am looking for a star butterfly. She told me she's staying here. Is that true? She was here to do something and wasn't going to get sidetracked." "Well then, why didn't you just say so?" Naruto's smirk turned into a smile as he watched the blonde extend his head inside and yell, "Star. I think it's for you." The creature's eyebrows moved noticeably. And what about the accused individual?" So, from the dining room, where she was eating the casserole that her host had made, she looked to see who was at the door. As soon as she met the extra party's eyes, her eyes glowed with recognition, and she exclaimed, "Oh my gosh," before rushing to the head and saying, "Flying Princess Pony Head." As the shouting blonde embraced the floating head with excitement, Naruto arched an eyebrow. "Oh Naruto, this is the best friend I've been telling you about." She then grabbed Naruto, drew him to her, and put her free arm around his chest, grinning excitedly at the friend. "And Pony, this is Naruto, he's the guy I've been talking about," she exclaimed. As Pony Head pulls away from her friend's embrace, she screams, "This square," and looks at the blonde with the spiky hair with a shocked expression on her face. "For real, B-Fly? Please tell me you're joking," she exclaims. "Square." Naruto then turned to seem insulted, saying, "I know you ain't talking, horse head. Where's your body? Was it made into glue?" Princess Pony Head interrupted her statement, took a deep breath, shook her head, and smiled back at her companion. "Glue? How dare you dash," she said. "Hey B-Fly, you ready to make some bad choices?" she asked. Star's eyes enlarge, but her smile is enormous, and as she turned to face Naruto, he could see how happy she was. "Sure, we can go," his fellow blonde said, giving him a big embrace. "But we have to be back before 10 or my parents would freak out," he said. Star gave a quick nod. Ignoring the bit about the parents freaking out, Ponyhead exclaimed, "Sweet. Let's go." My two besties are gonna be besties, exclaims Star with delight as she squeals and beckons her female buddy for another embrace. After glancing at Naruto, Ponyhead breaks off the embrace, winks at Star, abruptly swells her cheeks, and, while the other two watch, coughs for a moment before spitting out her tongue, which is tightly gripped by a pair of brilliant, perfectly silver scissors with a soft, scarlet-red handle and a small diamond in the middle. Star lets out a startled gasp. With her foot tapping the grass, she yells, "Dimensional scissors!" Jealous. With a gushing Star in tow, Ponyhead spun around and started to slit a hole in reality, then plunged into it once it was completely completed. While this was going on, Naruto pulled out his wand, pointed it at the area in front of him, and exclaimed, "Ice clone." Its tip then blasted a blast of cold wind, which dispersed seconds later to show a perfect replica of the blonde standing in front of him. The blonde with the spiky hair told the duplicate, "Clean up and lock up the place before Mom and Dad get back," since she didn't want them to find the house in disarray. Following the clone's salute, it disappeared into the house. Naruto then shut the door and hurried into the portal after the floating horse head. Their mutual friend, both blondes, did not notice the momentary change in Ponyhead's expression or the cautious glance she gave them before joining them and closing the portal. Note: Star versus the forces of evil and Naruto are not mine. Party time in Chapter 2. I gotta stop jumping through holes head first. Naruto's eyes started running marathons around his entire surroundings after he jumped out of the portal rather ungracefully, landing hard face first on a smooth yet hard floor. He felt the dust and dirt sprinkle on his face and spat it out of his mouth as he peeled himself off the solid surface. He was able to wobble to his feet, but he was having trouble shaking off the blur of his vision that followed, along with the loud pounding of his head. Whoa! Naruto's cerulean eyes swiftly spotted the variety of creatures of all shapes, sizes, colors, and anatomy that surrounded him. These creatures were the kind that he had only seen or read about in sci-fi, fantasy, and books. They were gathered in clusters, shaking whatever appendages indicated that they were dancing, or conversing using whatever means they used to communicate. Furthermore, the floors below him were divided into equilateral squares, which highlighted the fact that he was in a nightclub. A disco ball reflected the various lights in the area, a turntable a short distance away with what looked like a robot serving as the establishment's DJ, seated behind it, and of course, dazzling neon lights hanging from clouds. Even though the entire club appeared to be outside, not even just outside, but floating on a cloud in the middle of a pitch-black, infinite emptiness, he couldn't help but feel incredibly fortunate to have experienced this. So, he smiled and said, "Cool place, huh?" as the voice asking why he was here at all drew him away from his observation. With an enthusiastic expression, Naruto swung his palm around, saying, "Cool place? I think it's awesome." "Me too." Smiles Star, "This is the Bounce Lounge, one of my many fave places to chill, and the perfect debut to your trip across the multiverse." She then grabbed the other blonde's hand and pulled him with her, and what better way to commemorate the start of your epic journey with me than with a trip to the photo booth? Come on, I want to remember this day for a long time. With Ponyhead on her toe, she dragged the three of them into the small metal box a few feet from the DJ's area and sat between her best friend and boyfriend as the booth started to flash. Naruto joined in quickly as the two girls made strange and funny faces with every picture that was taken, while a screen in front of them went through every possible filter, caption, and sticker with every picture that was taken. "Who?" Star exclaimed, putting an arm over her companions. "Now, just you two." An additional memento from the night my best friends became best friends, she said. She then zips out of the booth, leaving Naruto by himself with Pony Head, who hovered in front of the blonde and smashed her face into his shortly after her buddy left. The head of the flying horse was pushed away from Naruto. "Look, about earlier, I apologize," he said. "So for Shrar's sake, can we start dash?" When the picture timer on the screen in front of them starts to tick down, Ponyhead interrupts the blonde, saying, "Alright Square, listen up, 'cause I'm gonna make something clear dash." By the time the flash goes off, they automatically pose in a cheek-to-cheek grin. As soon as they are clear, Ponyhead pulls away from the blonde, saying, "We are not gonna be besties, we aren't even going to be second besties." Disregarding his previous apology, Naruto blinked in perplexity and asked, "Is that even a thing? Second besties?" Ponyhead sassily thrusts her head forward and exclaims, "Oh! You want to make this a thing?" When the timer sounded once more, the two swiftly assumed a forced friendly position as another flash went off, then resumed their quarrel while the glittering horse head spit at him. Naruto flinched back against the wall behind him in astonishment as she aimed the sharp tip of her horn at his neck, saying, "Look here, pretty boy, this night is really important to me. You messed that up dash, you're gonna get the horn, got it?" "Good," she said. She shakes the horn menacingly in his direction after they stood once more for another flash. With a sickeningly lovely smile and a light tone, Ponyhead slips through the teal curtain and says, "Real good," as she glides around him and holds him captive within the booth for a few more moments. Later. Meanwhile, Naruto was blinking quickly as the lights flashed again. "Oh no! That's the best friend she was referring to," he winced. "Star should choose better buddies, in my opinion, but I'm friends with Marco Safe Kid Diaz." He eventually got up and left the booth because he wasn't really afraid of the horse head because he could tell that she didn't intend to kill him. This was especially true because he was confident that he could defend himself in an emergency, but he would still be cautious around her because he didn't know what that horn could do in the first place, which could be problematic. Speaking of the aforementioned issue, he was looking for his roommate when he noticed Ponyhead dancing with Star. Instead of approaching the two, he chose to leave them alone for the time being and explore the realm to see more of what it had to offer instead of Earth. He would keep an eye on them, though, as he had no way of returning if he were inadvertently forgotten. In the meantime, Star stopped dancing and smiled at her companion. The blonde exclaims, "So, what do you think of my new roommate?" "That's square," replied Ponyhead. "I can think of two donkeys that are way more chill than he is. You can do better be fly." Astonished by her friend, Star exclaims, "Pony Dash, I'll have you know that Naruto's very chill. He's one of the coolest guys I know. Honest." Ponyhead sarcastically rolls her eyes at her blonde friend and asks, "Didn't you say something similar about you-know-who? And that's before you broke up with him." The square's a 9 out of 10 in the looks department, but looks aren't everything, she says, pausing before grinning, "unless you're as perfect as me." Star scoffs and declares, "Naruto is nothing like Tom. If anything, he's the exact opposite of Tom," she says. Raising an eyebrow at her fellow princess, Ponyhead said, "And you're qualified to make that decision, why, exactly? Haven't you, known him for about a week? That's not long enough to know everything about somebody B-Fly, trust me, I know," she said. "And trust me," Star replied, "I know more than enough to tell that Naruto's way more awesome than you know." Ponyhead said, "I'll believe it when I see it," but she smirked when she noticed something. "But hey, at least you're not the only one with your backward thinking," she said. Star blinked, perplexed by what her buddy had said. Meanwhile, Naruto chose to just relax by himself, nodding to the music while resting back on a table with his eyes closed, after finishing the exploration, which didn't take long. His ears perked up at the female voice, and when he opened his eyes to follow the source, he saw that the woman was a teenager with brown hair, tan skin, a long white glove, a long dress with yellow and light yellow accents, and black heels. "Hey there, handsome," he said. A smirk returns when Naruto says, "You're not so bad looking yourself, Naruto." The woman, Daisy, said, "Daisy, here on your own?" "Nah, I'm here with a friend," said Naruto. "Unfortunately I saw her dancing with her friend, so I decided to let them have their fun." Daisy scowled and said, "Bummer, guy." "Floating horse head," said Naruto, "I didn't even know that was a thing till I met her." "We have mushrooms with legs and a giant, magical, turtle monster that shoots fireballs," Daisy says, leaning over the blonde. "Then I bet you'd be very surprised if you stopped by my place," she adds. "Trust me, with the life I've lived so far." "I'd be inclined to believe it," Naruto replied. "But something tells me there's more than that." Daisy pushed herself from the wall, moved in front of her discussion companion, and offered out a gloved hand, saying, "Wanna dance?" "Trust me," she said, "there is, but you're gonna have to stop by to find out." After a brief glance at the extended hand, Naruto took it. And Star rushed to the dancing couple, wearing a fake smile. Ponyhead moved swiftly. She interrupted her fellow princess's trail and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, B-Fly, chill. Why don't we let him have his fun? A little dancing isn't going to hurt anybody, right? We don't need to cut in, let's just have our fun," she said. Reminding herself that she wanted to go dimension hopping with her new buddy, Star paused and said, I guess you're right, it's just a little dancing, right?" "Exactly." Ponyhead grinned. "So why don't we let Earth Turd have his fun, while we have ours?" Star nodded after a while and said, "I guess that's, okay, yeah, okay, I don't need to cut into his fun time. Let's go." After that, Star made herself turn away and let Naruto enjoy himself as a smirking Ponyhead glanced at her friend's back before giving the blonde man a stink eye that he missed since he was dancing.